to elect me. Whether you like me or not, it makes no difference, because our country will go to hell if any of these people get in. It'll go to hell. You know, I was joking, but I'm really not joking. You have no choice, because whoever they put in, the saner they are, the worse they're doing. And whoever they put in, it looks like it's going to be a revolution to the left. They're going to take your money. They're going to take and very much hurt your families. I just don't think people can allow that to happen.
That was the President of the United States last night, sounding like a desperate man as the country slowly inches closer and closer toward the 2020 election. Donald Trump appears to be resorting, in that instance, to desperate measures to fulfill a campaign promise that he made in 2016. Now, we knew from earlier this month that Trump planned on diverting money from the Pentagon to pay for his beloved wall on the southern border. We now know, thanks to a blockbuster report from NBC News, that his plan was to pay for the precious wall by, quote, taking funds from more than 4 dozen Air Force military construction projects posing various national security risks for the U.S. Armed Forces, according to a report by the Air Force. One of those cutbacks includes security improvements to a base in Turkey that houses thousands of American airmen. Here's how the report characterized that cut. Quote, if not funded, the main gate remains vulnerable to hostile penetration in the midst of contingency operations and an increased terrorist threat. Joining me now is the reporter who broke this story, Courtney Kube, who covers national security and the Pentagon for NBC News. Courtney, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So explain what was on the list of being cut and what were the national security threats that created.
So this list in particular is just the Air Force projects. There's actually 127 total projects across the military, but the one that we're reporting on today is just the Air Force ones, 51 of them. The ones that really stuck out to me, these are all funds that have been unobligated, military construction projects that have been unobligated. So they were supposed to begin sometime in the near future, but had not yet begun. So they were, candidly, they were right picking because legally the Pentagon was able to reobligate them. And then, of course, President Trump, under the national security or the national emergency, is sending the money now to the border. So the ones that really stuck out to me were the Incirlik base, main gate, which you mentioned in the lead-in. Of course, this is Incirlik, which has had an increase in national security concerns ever since the U.S. has been involved in the war in Syria and the continuing involvement in Iraq. But not just that, there's some here in the United States. One that I found particularly striking was a boiler that was, according to the Air Force, it's going to fail. Its failure is imminent. Well, once this boiler goes, it's negative 65 degrees in Alaska in the winter. Well, within a matter of hours, the entire base will need to be evacuated. That's a U.S. military base in Alaska that will need to be evacuated. Then there are a number of bases in Europe as part of this European Defense Initiative. This is something that the U.S. put together. It's supposed to deter Russian aggression throughout Europe with this forward military presence there. Well, without these military construction projects, now the money is being sent to the wall. The U.S. military cannot base at many of these locations.
And was there any consultation, I guess, I don't know, I probably think I know the answer to this, between the White House and the Pentagon to talk through the necessity of some of these projects and at least allow the Pentagon to say, wait a minute, these are important to our national security, don't take the money away?
So the officials I spoke with, both on the Hill, who's been involved in this process, and people at the Pentagon, said that each of the services was told, give us a list of your unobligated projects. And then the Pentagon, big Pentagon, DOD, and the White House took those lists and selected the ones that they took the money away from.
And what is going to be have you got any reporting on what the response is going to be? Because a lot of these are in some states where Republicans now have to go home and answer for them, including some Republican senators up for re-election. That's
right. The way forward is really unclear still. In fact, what's still unclear is what's going to happen. Will these projects be funded in the near future? A big part of that is going to be the National Defense Authorization Act, the NDAA, which is going into conference next week. There are some on the Hill who are in favor of backfilling these projects, so essentially immediately replacing this money in a matter of about a year. But then there are some who are saying, no, we're not going to backfill the money. Yeah. So at this point, these projects, while they are theoretically right now, they're delayed, it's possible they could be delayed for the foreseeable future because there's no money that's automatically being reobligated to them.
Wow, and that is a national security concern just to build the precious. Courtney Kube, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.